The NFC East is on fire, and if it doesn't make you appreciate Howie Roseman, I don't know what will. We got to talk about it coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Friday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. Thanks for tuning in Monday through Friday, 5 episodes a week solo, hosted by myself, and 2 extra Locked On Eagles squad shows live on YouTube, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, and then they're posted on all audio platforms. Today felt like just Howie Roseman Appreciation Day. I think the last 24 hours truly have felt that way because the NFC East is just being engulfed in flames. Like the owners and the GMs of the other 3 NFC East teams, and 2 specifically the last 24 hours, they're just taking a flamethrower to this entire division, and they're trying to bring down their own teams in less than 24 hours. And again, if this doesn't make you appreciate being an Eagles fan, being a fan of a team that Howie Roseman runs, I don't know what's going to convince you. In less than 24 hours, Terry McLaurin and Micah Parsons, both are top 2 important players on the Washington Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys, the 2 biggest competitors in your division in 2025. Both of those star players have requested trades because Jerry Jones and the entire Washington Commanders brass wants to play games and be reactive instead of proactive in contract negotiations. Because of that, now they've managed to piss off 2 of the faces of their franchise. And it's awesome as an Eagles fan, even though I don't think either one are going to actually be traded. This is all part of negotiations, especially when you're a player and you're just, not happy with your situation. You request a trade. Trey Hendrickson did the same thing with the Bengals. They didn't trade him. He's reporting to camp, so a lot of the times it could help the team. But that doesn't help the Cincinnati Bengals because other players are going to see that. Trey Hendrickson sees that. He's not happy. He might not even want to sign a long-term deal. Now, he might play out that contract and go elsewhere. Other players aren't going to want to sign with a frugal team like the Cincinnati Bengals that just try to milk your prime, and then they're going to try to spit you out. They're going to chew you up and spit you out instead of taking care of you early. Who would want to play for that guy? And maybe you save $5 to $10 million, but is that really worth it? Like, I think the same thing about the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones. Like, you're not going to pay Micah Parsons? Like, yes, you are. You paid Trayvon Diggs. You paid CeeDee Lamb. You paid Dak Prescott. You waited on all of those guys. Number one, it doesn't save you money in the end because, again, like Howie Roseman paying Devontae Smith early, paying Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata early, it ends up being a team-friendly contract where, again, they paid these guys big contracts earlier, so they're not saving money at the time, but in the future, in the long term, in the grand scheme of things, you are saving money. Like Landon Dickerson, I think, is an underpaid player. Same with Jordan Mailata. Same with Devontae Smith, comparatively speaking. Like getting ahead of things, being proactive instead of reactive, helps your football team. Taking care of players early when they've earned contracts like Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts and pretty much everybody on that offense, outside of course, Dallas Goedert, but everybody else, being proactive when you know you're going to keep them long term, it's good for business because other players on other teams see that and they want to come play for Philadelphia because they know the GM isn't going to try to take advantage of them. They know the owner isn't going to try to pinch pennies and take advantage of them. That's what Jerry Jones is doing because his own ego and hunger for power gets in the way. He's like, I negotiate. I tell you when I pay you. And it pisses off his star players. And I don't think CeeDee Lamb probably wants to be there now, even though he's signed long-term. Like, he tweeted about it, and there's a lot of other players that notice the same thing. It's a crazy process, and it makes you appreciate the Eagles, and it's why they're competing for championships and winning championships, and it's why the Washington Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys are still reminiscing about the 1980s and the 1990s. And Washington's situation's a little bit different, but even the Commanders, their process is so hypocritical and flawed too. The Washington Commanders are a top 2 oldest roster in the NFL. The reason they don't want to pay Terry McLaurin the money that he wants, I think they're willing to pay him, but Terry McLaurin wants $30+ million a year. He wants top of market value. The Commanders say, well, you're 30 years old. We don't want to pay you that. Well, Washington, you're paying all these other old players. Like, that's your identity around Jaden Daniels. You're going to draw the line at Terry McLaurin, a wide receiver one that, yeah, he's 30, but he's still in the middle of his prime. Dealt with garbage quarterback play for, more than half a decade. Then had a career year with an elite quarterback that you finally get him. And you need him, or else big man Deebo Samuel is going to be your wide receiver one. Like, you're really going to play games with Terry McLaurin? It's the playing games part that's just crazy to me. The Bengals do it, the Cowboys do it, the Commanders do it, and the Eagles don't do it. And it's what I appreciate about Howie Roseman, and not just Howie Roseman, but Jeffrey Lurie. Like, he is willing to pay these players early. He's willing to pay them upfront cash, and it helps with the salary cap too. So, yeah, he's paying cash up front, and these other owners aren't willing to do that, but it does kind of save you money from a cap perspective in the long run. So I think it's for Jerry Jones, it's an ego thing. Because again, Jerry Jones, like, he wants to dictate negotiations. Parsons said today on social media that Jerry tried to negotiate with him without the agent's knowledge. And then when he kind of baited Parsons into a contract conversation, he kind of toxically said, well, the contract's pretty much done. I'm not talking to your agent now. And then they've been dealing with those problems for 2 straight years. And it's crazy because Micah Parsons is not Trey. I can kind of understand why the Bengals wouldn't want to pay Trey Hendrickson, although I would do it from a team like Cincinnati that, is in their prime with Joe Burrow and trying to make a championship run and keep that core intact. I kind of get it. He is over the age of 30. I don't know if Trey Hendrickson's the kind of player that will age well on the edge. But Micah Parsons was drafted only in 2021. He is not even, I don't think he's even really hit his prime yet. He's the same age as Devontae Smith. Why are you playing games with him? And why did it take so long to pay CeeDee Lamb? And you were proactive with Trayvon Diggs. Again, their processes are just so weird and hypocritical. But as an Eagles fan, I personally love it. Again, I don't think McLaurin's going to get traded. I don't think Micah Parsons is going to get traded. We saw, Myles Garrett request a trade, and he signed an extension. We saw Trey Hendrickson request a trade, and in good faith, he reported back to the Bengals facility for training camp. But there are instances where guys hold out a long time, like Hassan Reddick last year, Le'Veon Bell back in the day. There are those extremes that maybe Parsons takes it to. There are guys that do get traded. A.J. Brown, the Tennessee Titans did not want to pay A.J. Brown market value. They said, we'll replace you with Treylon Burks, and we'll get around the same production. He was traded. So never say never. I don't think Parsons gets traded, but maybe McLaurin does. Regardless, even if they don't, I think what Washington and Dallas is doing overall, in the grand scheme of things, is bad for business. And it's all in the name of ego, power, and saving a little bit of money in the now. But you're actually spending more in the future, because the more you wait on paying Micah Parsons and the more you wait on even paying Terry McLaurin, I don't think they're not going to pay him at all. If it's $30+ million or not having him, I think they're going to do it. If he is that dug in the sand on where he feels his value is, just waiting is only going to cost you more money. Those guys are not going to come down on their asking price. Maybe there's a middle ground with Terry McLaurin, but if I'm Micah Parsons and I see the contracts that Myles Garrett's getting and even older players like TJ Watt, no way am I accepting anything less than what they got, if not more. And now with the way that Jerry Jones has handled things, yeah, you're damn right I wouldn't want to play for that organization. And if I'm a free agent across the NFL, I don't want to play for those football teams either. So that's why you want to play for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's why they win Super Bowls. And again, like I said, it's why the Cowboys and Commanders haven't raised any sort of significant banner since the VHS was the main playback system in the United States. So pretty much for me, it felt like a Howie Roseman appreciation day. One of the best GMs in all of sports, and it's great to be in the NFC East right now. And we know the Giants are going to stink, I think, in my opinion. So it's good to be in this division, and it's good to be an Eagles fan. All right, that's going to do it for segment 1. Let's get into, coming up next, some training camp updates from practice today down at the NovaCare Complex. Will Shipley had a big day, and I think they need to use him more in the passing game in 2025. I'll tell you why coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. This Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in just one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. I'm thinking about the house market soon. I want to start building my wealth, tracking my spending. I am a spender. I love to travel. I love to online shop. I love to order food at home while I'm editing my podcast. Monarch Money helps me balance saving for the long term, building my wealth, while also managing my current money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for 50% off your first year. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. The Eagles had another intense training camp practice today down in South Philly at the NovaCare Complex, padded practice. The offense, I think, getting back on track. The defense has definitely been winning the majority of practices, but they've strung together a couple solid practices on offense to end the week. The passing game still up and down, but it sounds like the run game has really gotten dominant the last 2 days of practice. That felt like games from a lot of beat reporters' perspectives. Saquon Barkley, 2 touchdowns today in practice. Sounds like he was the star of the show. Ripped off a couple long runs, was talking trash. As I said on the show the other day, again, they're going to pass more this year. I think they're going to pass more efficient than last year in the regular season. But this is still Saquon Barkley's offense, and I know I had Michael Fabiano on the show yesterday, and he sees a regression coming from Saquon from a fantasy perspective, which I agree. It was a historic season. Of course, they're going to see a regression. History tells us a running back that had that kind of usage rate and that success just doesn't replicate it the next year. But it doesn't matter. He's still going to be an all-pro running back that I think has over 1,600 rushing yards or scrimmage yards total, getting close to 2,000 from scrimmage, and he's going to be still the face of the Eagles offense that competes for championships. But I will say, they need to use other running backs more this year, more than they used Kenneth Gainwell last year, more than they used a rookie Will Shipley. We talked the other day about A.J. Dillon. It sounds like he looks healthy. He looks productive. They're using him more in the receiving game. Sounds like they plan on having him be a bigger part of this offense maybe than we think. But I do want to see Will Shipley not get slept on. I still want to see Will Shipley, of the 2 guys behind Saquon, I want to see Shipley be the featured player because I just think he's a more dynamic receiver than A.J. Dillon. Dillon's more of the big, physical, powerful running back. And while when he does build up speed, he is explosive. And he does have pretty good hands. I mean, he had multiple seasons in Green Bay where he had, like 25 to 35 receptions, which for a guy of that style is pretty good. But Shipley, he is I'm not saying he's going to be Darren Sproles, but he is a Darren Sproles kind of player. Smaller, super quick, athletic, explosive, short area, route running, burst. I think he's got long range speed as well. He's got really natural hands. All he did at Clemson was catch balls. He had 85 receptions with Clemson over 2.5 years, back-to-back years with 30-plus catches. I want to see, again, if they're going to throw to the running back more this year, if they're going to try to keep Saquon healthy, especially earlier in the season, and use other running backs more. Not that it's going to be a committee approach, but, use guys more than they did last year where it was all Saquon Barkley. I do want to see Will Shipley as a part of this offense. He caught a 20-yard touchdown from Jalen Hurts today on a beautiful wheel route down the sidelines. He beat Jahad Campbell, the explosive Eagles first-round pick in coverage, and we know how much bigger Campbell is than Shipley. For him to get around Campbell is really impressive. Shipley can set up those kind of linebackers, though, and I think, if you want to use him more in pre-snap motion, maybe put him in the slot and try to get him those mismatches against linebackers, maybe even safeties in the open field, I think Shipley could be a really poor man's version of Darren Sproles. And again, I want to throw to the running back more because not only will it keep Saquon healthier when you throw to him instead of running him all the time, but you also throw to other running backs. It also helps out the quick passing game. I think it could help revive the screen game by getting Shipley involved. And those are 2 areas of the offense last year that just weren't consistent enough in the regular season. So with all that being said, again, I don't think Will Shipley's going to come in and be a featured part of this offense, like Darren Sproles, there were years he had, 50 plus receptions and was like the go-to explosive player in this offense, especially for Chip Kelly's offenses for a couple seasons. I don't think he's going to be that guy. The Eagles have 4 target, touch monsters on this offense, but in sparing situations, especially considering your receiver and tight end depth is pretty weak outside of your big 3, Shipley could be a nice alternative in the passing game. So I think you could do a circa 2014, LaShawn McCoy, Darren Sproles kind of thing with Saquon Barkley and Will Shipley. I think Shipley could be that kind of guy, and not just checkdowns, but start to use him and Saquon and A.J. Dillon with more calculated looks in the passing game, the screen game. Use them more in pre-snap motion, especially Saquon and Shipley. In man coverage, try to get him lined up with some linebackers. And I love the wheel route, man. I think Jalen Hurts, it's one of the routes that Jalen just throws a beautiful ball when he's throwing wheel routes. Like, I still remember both touchdowns Saquon had in the receiving game last year. Deep ones were on wheel routes along the left sidelines, week 1 against Green Bay, along the right sideline against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think Shipley can be that guy. Again, 85 receptions in 2.5 years, 3 years with Clemson, but 2.5 where he was like the featured player. His last 2 years with the Tigers, he had back-to-back 30-plus reception seasons. Shipley, again, is he a guy that can hold up as your featured running back if Saquon Barkley were to get injured this year? Knock on wood. No, I think that is A.J. Dillon. I think in a vacuum, A.J. Dillon is your quote-unquote RB2 from a carries perspective, but I think Shipley is your RB2 from a touches perspective. And even when Saquon's healthy, I want to use him more than they used even Kenneth Gainwell last year. I think he's a really good special teamer as well. I think Shipley's an underrated player on this roster that we're not talking about enough, and I'm excited to see what he does in the preseason. I think he's a versatile player, and he showed it in the NFC Championship. I think he's the first player in NFL history that had a forced fumble on special teams. He had a tackle. He had a long run on offense, and I remember what the stat was, but he had a touchdown too in that game. Like he had some stat where he just impacted the game in 3 different areas that just shows off his versatility, and I'm kind of excited about Will Shipley. I don't think we talk about him enough. All right, guys, we'll wrap up this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles. Coming up next, who are some players that maybe they're not shining right now in training camp, but their stock could soar when the preseason starts? Who are more gamers than practice players that we should watch? I'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings that bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of my personal favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, I'm closer to making memories with friends. Riding the golf cart, having some 5 Hour Energy, because I'm a bogey to double bogey golfer. Definitely not hitting birdies. This one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Well, on the course, you can do the same thing. Golf is all about good times, but it's a marathon. Sometimes you're out there on the course for 6 to 7 hours with good people and good flavors. Of course, you got to use 5 Hour Energy. That grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your favorite clubhouse go-to without chasing down the beverage cart. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. That's the number 5hourenergy.com. And you use our promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. All right, guys, we're wrapping up this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles. Thanks, as always, for making us your first listen each and every day. I think there's been a lot of guys that are really making a name for themselves at training camp, some that are obvious. I mean, Saquon Barkley looks great, and Quinyon Mitchell. Who else? A.J. Brown's been making plays. The offensive line looks really strong. Lane Johnson, as always, an elite player. There's some risers that we expected too. Jalix Hunt and Moro Ijoma. Love hearing that they're having great summers so far on the defensive line. I think you've got Jahan Dotson, looks a lot more comfortable in the offense in year 2 with Jalen Hurts, understanding the scheme. I think Dotson's going to be more involved this year. It's great to hear about the rookies. Jahad Campbell looks really good. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Smile Mondon, the linebackers. I said it on the show yesterday. they might have the best linebacker room in the entire NFL this year from top to bottom, with stars at the top and a lot of depth throughout the position. But I think there are also some younger players that we're not talking about that are on the bubble that could make this 53-man roster that are maybe a little bit more quiet right now because they're not performing, or it's because of just lack of opportunities in training camp, that I think when the preseason rolls around next week, we're going to be talking more about these guys as potential names to watch for the 53, maybe even bigger roles on the 53, maybe just making the practice squad. But hey, as Eagles fans, since 2017, we know the importance of the practice squad. There's been a lot of practice squad players that have helped the Eagles get into the postseason. So I will never knock the practice squad. Who could be those guys that, again, maybe they're not practice players or they're not earning a spot in practice on this roster, but they're gamers. They can do it in the preseason, or again, even earn a spot on another team. Because remember, these guys are fighting for not just a job with the Eagles, but a spot with any of these 32 NFL teams. Because we know the majority of these players aren't going to make the roster. Well, not the majority, but close to. So, 40+% of whoever's at training camp right now. So who are those guys that can earn spots? For me, it's a lot of positions that I think do better in the preseason than practice. For me, like running back and tight end. I always watch running back and tight end in the preseason because those positions just naturally do better in the preseason in a conservative offense with backup quarterbacks that most of the time they suck or they're not aggressive. They like to check it down. They like to throw it over the middle. Tight ends and running backs get the ball a lot, especially in vanilla offensive schemes. Those are the quick options for these backup quarterbacks. So naturally, I look at the two UDFA running backs that I've been watching a lot so far this summer, Montrell Johnson and Shunderick Powell. They have been having good camps, but I feel like they could really earn a spot either on this roster or another team through a really good preseason. And we've seen a lot of Eagles running backs ball out in the preseason and make a name for themselves elsewhere. Like the one I always think about is Raheem Mostert. So Montrell Johnson, Shunderick Powell, those are two guys I think right now we're not talking about as much. We're talking about A.J. Dillon and Will Shipley and, of course, Saquon as well. Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson, for a lot of that same logic, I'm watching those guys closely too. Those third and fourth tight ends behind Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra. Harrison Bryant, Kylan Granson, I just think they're going to get a lot of checkdowns. They're going to have the ability to showcase who they can be in the passing game. The Eagles are going to run the football a lot in the preseason. I think we can see like how developed is Harrison Bryant as a blocker. Sounds like he's made a lot of progress as a blocker over the years in the NFL. Kylan Granson, more of an explosive, gadgety halfback type of tight end compared to Harrison Bryant. Like, let's see if he can be explosive, run after the catch. Those are four guys on offense because of how vanilla and how bad quarterbacks can be in the preseason. I'm really watching Montrell Johnson and Shunderick Powell in the backfield, and I'm watching Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson at tight end. And I'm watching the quarterbacks too because, again, those guys battling for the third quarterback spot, DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Kyle McCord, the rookie out of Syracuse, there's not a lot of reps for those players in practice. The third and fourth guys, like they're splitting like very few reps. So the preseason is really where they can decide who wins that job. And of course, DTR is on the outside looking in because Howie Roseman likes to keep his draft picks. McCord, it sounds like he's had a good spring and summer. I think he's a more natural passer, just an overall better player than DTR. But DTR is mobile. I think they kind of want to keep a mobile quarterback in this quarterback room. He's been having some really good practices. Like last week, he was better the majority of practice than Kyle McCord. And again, that running style, I think it shows off better. Of course it does. When you can get tackled in the preseason, you can make plays happen improv outside of structure. I think DTR could gain some ground in this battle in the preseason, but I still think Kyle McCord's the favorite, and he could really clinch that in the preseason by just having maybe like even one good game. I think would kind of wrap it up for Kyle McCord. And then on defense, I just want to see Antoine Powell-Ryland just tee off on quarterbacks in the third and fourth quarter. I just think he's going to be a guy that's consistently getting to the quarterback in the second half of these games. And again, in practice, like when you're fifth or sixth in the depth chart in the rotation, sometimes it's tough and you kind of get overlooked, but I'm going to call him APR. Like we got DTR. I'm going to call Antoine Powell-Ryland APR, and that'll stick if he makes the roster, I think, for me. I want to see Antoine Powell-Ryland because maybe he is somebody you can use in situational pass rushing spots over a guy like Josh Uche or Azeez Ojulari. Like, don't rule out APR as somebody as that last pick, the Eagles 2025 draft class that could make a name for himself. He's the guy in defense I'm especially watching in the preseason that we haven't heard much of as of now. And again, he's learning Vic Fangio's defense. When it's the preseason, it's time to just pin your ears back and go get the quarterback. I think APR is somebody that could thrive in that kind of environment. Let me know what you think. Hit us up on X at DiBiase, at Locked On Birds. Thanks as always for making us your first listen each and every day. Until Monday, thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.